Hello. Welcome to the In Love with Business podcast. This miniseries is titled Chief Sustainability Heroes and is hosted by Professor Paolo Tatiki and Melina Shore from University College London, School of Management. Throughout this series, we will talk to sustainability leaders from different organizations and sectors to learn about their sustainability journeys. We will ask them about their career paths, the challenges they encountered in implementing complex strategies of sustainable transformation, and what inspired them along the way. We will also ask what advice they would offer to aspiring chief sustainability officers. Enjoy the episode.
In today's episode, we welcome sustainability and innovation leader Magali Anderson. Magali is a member of the board of directors of Anglo American, a leading global mining company that employs more than 10,000 people worldwide. Previously, Magali was the chief sustainability and innovation officer at Holcim Group, a Switzerland-based global building materials company, where she was also an executive part of the executive committee member. Mechanical engineering by training, like me. Magali has spent the majority of her career in the oil and gas industry in a number of operational, commercial, and business transformation leadership positions. Magali, is a pleasure to have you in our show. Welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Paolo. I'm very happy to be here with you today.
Thank you. Welcome.
So, Magali, my first question to you is probably a very simple one. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you became a CSO?
Well, as you said, I'm a mechanical engineer. I love science. I actually joined the oil and gas industry and spent the vast majority of my career there because it's extremely scientifically challenging. So I have a particular love for that. Around 50, I think I had kind of a wake-up call. And, I like to say that when men reach 50, they buy a sports car. When I reached 50, I wanted to give purpose to my life. And the way it started was by becoming the head of health and safety for Holcim. So I left Schlumberger to go to Holcim. And I thought that was pretty cool to get up every morning with the purpose of saving people's life. But then about 3 years later, the board of directors and the CEO decided to create a CSO position. At that time, it was one of the very first one, definitely the first one in the industry, at the executive committee level. And he came to me and offered me the job. And I thought it was great to get up and save human lives. Now he's offering me to save humankind. So that's even better. So that's how I came there. And like you said, I am a businesswoman. So I've had all kind of business job. I consider myself as a Jill of all trades. And but I'm absolutely passionate about sustainability, and not only in my personal life, but also on how to have an impact and make a change.
This is fantastic. I guess after having worked as a sustainability leader at Holcim Group and also in your current work now, do you still have this inspiration to drive sustainable transformation?
Well, more than ever, because 4 years ago when I got the job, like I said, I was one of the first one. At that time, I think it was quite visionary from Holcim to do that. But if you look today, it's becoming more and more of a topic. Of course, legislation is helping, compliance, reporting, etc., are becoming stronger and stronger. So everyone is looking at it. So now most companies would have a chief sustainability officer or trying to get one. So I'm more passionate than ever because I think, unfortunately, the scientists are showing that they were right to tell us that we were going into a wall, and that wall is coming faster than we think. And I think we just need to have every single hand on the deck right now to try to stop the car before it hits the wall.
Yeah, so driving change, addressing big challenges is your source of inspiration.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good source of inspiration for sure. And given your experience working in the field of sustainability, how do you describe or define the role of Chief Sustainability Officer?
It's a very interesting question, Melina, because I think there's almost as many answers as there are chief sustainability officer. Um, and it's of course depends where you work, in which type of industry.
Yeah.
So it would be a very different job if you are CSO of a bank versus being CSO of a hard to abate sector.
Okay.
In the case of the hard to abate sector, which I love to call the full of opportunities sector, I think the role of the chief sustainability officer is truly to make a business change. Let's change the model in such a way that the less we produce, the more money we make, so everyone is happy, and the less CO2 we make. So how do we make more with less? It sounds a bit basic, but it's all about, that's how circular economy is all about, but it's not just that. It's how do you design things differently so you need less of it. And so for me, the chief sustainability officer, that's why I was saying I'm a Jill of all trade, is someone who needs to understand business, understand markets, understand how to change all of that, but also understand the technology side, because you are going to work with a lot of technology people who are going to help you in that journey, and you need to speak their language.
Okay. Okay. And this next question, it may also depend on sector as well, but what are the most significant challenges facing companies today, and how do you address them in your role as a CSO?
Again, a lot of people I think would answer that question by reporting. And I don't know if you noticed, but in the previous question, one thing I did not answer part of the CSO role was reporting, right? Even though I think a lot of CSOs think that's what they are. I always think about it that way. For me, the CSO is like a CEO, Chief Environmental Officer. For a CSO who would only concentrate on reporting would be like a CEO who would only concentrate on the financial reporting of his company. I don't think that company would go very far, even if the books are completely perfect. The CEO is there to use the reporting as an enabler, as something that tells you if your strategy is on the right track, as something that helps you validate your path. But reporting is only an enabler. So yes, I do a lot with CSRD taxonomy and all the like coming up. A lot of people think, wow, this is super complex. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying it's just new, but it's certainly not more complex than doing a balance sheet.
Yeah.
And we've been doing that and no one talks about it, right? I mean, we just do it. So it's something we just need to put the resources and get it done. But really, the real challenge is how do you actually change the company model? And it's a real challenge because here you truly touch DNA of the company. You are asking them to change. I will give you an example. Philips. If you remember Philips, about 15 years ago, they decided they would go from selling bulbs to selling light services. Now, it's extremely interesting because when you sell bulbs, your incentive is the more bulbs I sell, the more money I make. And the more bulbs I sell, certainly the more CO2 I make. Once I start selling light services, my interest is that my bulbs need to last much longer. The longer they last, the more money I make now. And the longer they last, the less CO2 I emit. So that shift of paradigm, that pivot of a company is extremely interesting. And when you ask Philips how they did it, it was a complete change of the DNA. It was a complete change of who you sell to, how you sell to, your market, your value chain, everything is changed. Because if you think about it, somehow they were becoming the competitor of their own clients, etc., etc. And this is for me, I think, the real challenge, but the only way we are going to truly decarbonize and make companies more sustainable.
And Magali, speaking of challenges, I remember me and you connected towards the end of 23 in occasion of a nice event organized by Sustainability Live in London. And being a part of the same panel, we had an interesting conversation on the topic of complexity of sustainable transformation. And I remember you having a very interesting point of view on this topic of complexity. Do you want to share that one?
Yeah, because so it was really funny because one of the panelists, and it was not you, Paolo, said that sustainability was complex, and I raised my hand and said we should not say that. And if you remember, as a facilitator, as a full panel and as a public who thought it was complex, and everyone said, raised their hand and said it is complex. So he turned to me and said, Magali, you are wrong. And my answer to him was, I love your science-based protocol to evaluate if I'm right or wrong. Or, anyway, that's how I remember it. I don't know if that was exact word used, but because today, again, I think we are confusing novelty and complexity. If a company goes into deciding of a new business, they are going to put the resources. They are going to train people, skill them, put the right team in place. Same for reporting. When financial reporting, Sarban and Oxley came out, 15, 20 years ago, was huge, was extremely new and difficult. But what did the finance organization? Did they put the right resources, the right skill, and they got it done? So when people talk about complex, they talk about CSRDs, they talk about reporting. This it's new again. We have to train people. I'm not saying it's going to be a complete easy ride, but the nice thing about most companies is you have hundreds of people who dedicate their time reporting, and these are the finance teams. So if you parallel what finance is doing with what sustainability is doing in terms of reporting, which is happening more and more, by the way, because more and more countries are asking you to review your sustainability KPI with a third-party assurance, to have them reviewed by the audit committee of the board, to have them voted at the AGM, exactly like financial result, which is fantastic because that's going to make sure that all the robustness of the KPI is as good as finance. But it's not complex, it's just new. It's something you get the finance people to work on it, for example. They love it, they will do a fantastic job at it. And yourself, as a CSO, you work on what is truly complex, which is the changing of the business model.
I see. And so you spoke, and I think here you are pointing to a very important thing on the topic of training people. When there is something new, you need to upskill your human capital in the organization. And I guess that is in a way true for chief sustainability officers. For me, I guess it's always amazing to reflect on the range of ESG topics that go under the topic of sustainability, and it's very hard to be an expert of everything. It's very hard to be an expert of decarbonization and an expert of circular economy and an expert of equality, diversity, and inclusion, or an expert of business transparency. So I'm curious, as a CSO, how do you, where is the balance, and how do you, make sure that you are always up to date?
But as a CSO, you don't need to be an expert of everything because you have a team of experts working for you who are the true experts. You need just to know enough to discuss vision with them, to challenge them, to support them, etc. Again, I'm back to my CEO comparison. It would be like if you were expecting a CEO of a company to be expert on every single thing that that company is doing. No, he's not. His job is to have a vision, drive the company towards that vision, and coordinate, make sure he has the best people in place and coordinate the efforts of everybody. He's a bit of a orchestra master, right? Well, CSO is exactly the same. Your job is to make sure that you have the experts. They keep up to date. They're the one who tells you what happened at the last IPCC report, at the last COP, etc. In case you haven't been yourself. But your job is really to make them work as a team, to get a vision, to get a target, to make and to engage the entire company because it's not your team who is going to do your job, it's the entire company. So you want to have the entire company engaged to do the job. Now, how you do that? This actually is not by training. Majority of that work is not going to require training because I don't need the people in the cement plant to understand climate change. If they do, it's better, but it's not going to be what will drive the change of Holcim. What will drive the change of a company like Holcim is that we align the objectives at the executive committee level. We make sure that we have an action plan per unit that is aligned with the objective, with a bonus system, and that everyone understands what they have to do. But this is actually quite technical. The things people have to do are technical things. So I hear companies explaining to me how they have developed all kind of training on climate change. Why not? If you have nothing better to do, why not? You can occupy your time doing that. But the true reality is, it's not because you understand climate change that you are going to act. That would be quite nice, actually, if it was happening that way. But it's not. You only act once you know what to do, how to do it, and that you know that those objectives are not contradicting the financial ones that you have.
Allow me, Magali, to jump on for a second on the topic of bonus systems that you mentioned. In the book that me and Melina published last year on sustainable transformation strategies, we basically analyzed 12 big corporations in different industries to basically study the emerging best practice for sustainable transformation, what works, what doesn't work. And one of the findings of our research was suggesting that linking executive pay to ESG metrics is actually a very good practice, and it can really help organizations to accelerate on these journeys of transformation. Is that something that you kind of you recognize based on your experience?
Well, not only we did it, but I would say it's a basic. You just have to do it. You don't have any other choice, because the way companies work is that the way that the CEO is cascading down his vision is via the set of objectives, because so people are being rewarded if they act towards the vision of the CEO, right? So if sustainability is not in your objectives, then you are somehow passing on the message that it doesn't really matter, because if you could completely fail all your sustainability KPIs and still get your total bonus. So the only way to show that you're serious about it is to have it in your bonus system. I would even go as far as saying, if you don't have it in your bonus system, I challenge you on how strategic you consider sustainability is as a company.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Melina, over to you.
Yeah. So, Magali, can you share with us, when you reflect on your career and your experience, an example of a particularly successful sustainability initiative that you're proud of, whether it was at Wholesome or at another organization? But is there one that sort of stands out in your mind as being one that you're proud of that's really helped transform, I guess, an organization?
Well, there are actually many, but I will go with maybe the most obvious one. So I was named a sustainability officer in October 2019, and end of September 2020, which is exactly 1 year later, we announced our net zero pledge with the pathway validated by SBTi, at least the 2030 target. And we were the first in the industries to do it, and one of the first companies in the world to actually do it. A lot of people had made a pledge, but without SBTi. Some people had SBTi, but not the pledge, but not many people had link posts of them.
Okay.
Having a pledge without something like SBTi is, well, it's a wishful thinking. Is okay, I'm going to go to zero, but I'm not telling what my pathway is, and I'm not validating it. So it's like politician. You can believe their promises if you want, but it's up to you.
Right.
And so I was very proud of that. And the reason it took 1 year to do it is because we engaged the entire organization to do it, to make sure that we had an action plan associated to it, and we knew we could deliver it. But what came out of the result of that, outside the fact that we engaged an entire company and we got an entire company moving together, which was absolutely incredible, positive, the feedback we got from more or less every employee. But also, it was the first in the industry. And after that, the industry, the construction industry is very conservative. So no one really likes to be the first mover. It's
Oh,
not like Google or. And being the first mover opened the track for everyone else to get in it. Because once someone has made a move, everyone else wants to make that move. And after that, with Global Cement and Concrete Association, GCCA, we launched a program to get all of the GCCA members to commit to net zero by 2050. And that represents 80% of the cement made outside China. And that was the work that I co-chaired. So
wow.
not only by doing that, we moved Holcim, but we moved the entire industry. So I'm extremely, extremely proud of that. But I'm proud of other things as well, but that one I'm extremely proud.
That's
Oh,
amazing.
and
Wow.
one last thing. Yeah, one last thing is, even though Holcim is not is a company that has many enemies, a lot of people don't like cement, a lot of NGOs, a lot of activists. No one has been able to have a substantiated accusation of greenwashing since.
Wow.
So that's how solid our. It took 1 year, but it was a very, very solid
Wow.
net zero pledge.
That's amazing.
Interesting.
By changing the cement industry, you're literally paving the way forward. So that's a very amazing
Exactly.
accomplishment. So when we're talking about sustainability, it's often described as a journey. And every journey has its ups and downs and challenges. And you mentioned earlier, the IPCC reports, which when they come out, they can be depressing at times. So how do you stay motivated when facing challenges or setbacks on this journey?
I think it's really a question of impact. The work that we did at Holcim, it was not me, by the way. It was
Hmm.
the team, with the support of the board, of the executive committee, of the CEO. It was everybody, right? I mean, I was just myself, like I said, the orchestra master, getting all the music going on.
Hmm.
But you need every single instrument. I think the ups and downs shouldn't come from outside. At the contrary, what comes from outside should push you to go further, because again, it's a race. It's a race that we are losing at the moment. So when you are losing a race, you shouldn't stop and sit on the side. You should find a way to run faster. And and this is how I'm looking at it. I think it actually motivates me because, you know, today we did all hands on deck, but what I bring to the table myself is the fact that knowing industries as an operation person, as someone who have run P&L, I really understand the challenges of the people, but I also understand sustainability. There's not that many people who can join those two worlds. And one of the issues we find sometimes is sustainability people don't talk the business language. And it's not that business people don't want to do the thing, they just don't manage to get together and find a plan. There are people like me. I'm not the only one, obviously, but I don't think we are that many who can join both words. And I feel that we are so needed that it would be criminal to stop. When I stopped working for Holcim, I did think about, should I stop completely work? Should I retire and go on a
Hmm.
nice island and maybe in Italy, Paolo, and stay on the beach for the rest of but I don't think I can. It's extremely arrogant to say that, but I think, you know, looking at how the weather is developing, how things are developing at the moment, I feel like if I didn't have my hands on decks, I would really, really feel terrible about it. I wouldn't sleep very well. I don't.
And I
Okay.
guess driving sustainable transformation in a very large corporation is, of course, a very ambitious program of transformation, which is touching virtually every element, every department of an organization. So, what type of tips or experience you would like to share in relation to engaging people from marketing or people from operations, people from finance, in a journey of sustainable transformation. Because in a way, as a CSO, you need to be an influencer inside an organization, right?
Well, I think this is where deep understanding of how business works is so important. You need to understand what triggers people. Everyone is triggered by different things. What engineers are triggered by being in front of a super challenge, technical challenge to resolve. They love that. That's that. So you have to present it that way. Financial people are triggered by something else. So once you understand what triggers people, you need to show that doing sustainability is going to help them doing their job even better. If you present it as an additional burden to what they do, then it's never going to work. And so you have to present it as a business opportunity for the marketing guys. But I truly think that majority of people want to do good want to do sustainable business. They just don't know how to do it. So once you explain how to do it, and once you explain that they don't need to sacrifice, this is when you ask them to sacrifice something that you start hitting a bit of a wall. But when you explain to them that they don't need to sacrifice money and profit for sustainability, maybe a little bit, but overall it's going to be good because you are going to develop a new business model that's going to work really well. Then they are with you. The other tip I would say, if one day I wrote a leadership book, which I will never do because I don't even read them, but I would invent a strategy which would be the surrounding strategy. I don't know about you, but most people, when you submit to them a new idea, the first thing they do is turn to their team, send it to their first line, people reporting to them, and ask for their opinion. If it's very, very new idea, these people might not even have an opinion, so they are going to do the same. Ask their own team what their opinion is. So if you work bottom up and if you start convincing first the base, when the guy above is asking them an opinion, they are already convinced, and you go up all the way to the top. So when the last guy, the CEO, is in front of the executive committee and asking them an opinion about this new idea, you have already talked to each of them and you know that each of them is supporting it. Or the ones who are not supporting, you have found a way to make them either ally or at least not enemies,
No.
neutral to ally. And again, that's why it took me 1 year. It takes time. I think a big mistake would be to think because we're in a race, you need to rush everything. No, doing what I just explained takes time, and you need to really, because you only have one shot. Once you go and get your net zero pledge, for example, rejected by the board, by the executive committee, by the CEO, it's much, much harder to go back later and get it approved again. So you only have one shot, and you have to make sure you should get it. So you don't wake up one morning and go to the exco and present it and say, hey, look at it, looks great. You first need to check every single thing that, again, trigger action, but also every single showstopper. And you need to remove every single showstopper. And until you have done that, you haven't done your job.
And of course, Magali, the topic of governance and evolving governance is quite important in the context of sustainable transformation. And through our research, through interviewing CSOs in this podcast, we have realized that sustainability is organized in a very different way in different organizations. So I'm curious to know if changed the organization of sustainability at Holcim when you were there. If you have a point of view in terms of reporting lines or where sustainability should sit in an organization. Even if I appreciate it's very often company specific or industry specific. What would you say are the key, pillars in taking these type of decisions?
So the first thing is the CSO has to be part of the executive committee. Like, this is not negotiable. If the CSO is not at the executive committee, that means that the company is not strategic about sustainability. Because what happened when you're at the executive committee is you are part of every single discussion. So sustainability is not a topic on the side anymore. It's a topic that's embedded in every single discussion, that be strategy discussion, investment discussion, and I'm talking business here. And so, at the moment, I'm looking for my next adventure. And if it's not C-suite, I'm not even looking at it, because that means that you won't have that power. You need that power. You need to be able to walk into the CEO's office anytime and have a chat. And you need to be peer with the CFO. You need to be at that level. If you're not at that level, forget it. You might as well walk away. You won't achieve anything. Now, I'm a bit exaggerating, but not that much. Now, below me, I actually don't really change that much the structure. I had experts. I got new people because I really wanted more than super technical experts. I wanted project management type of expert. I wanted people, because it's great to have a strategy. It's better when you know how to implement it. And implementation skills requires a minimum of project management, not super project managers, but at least understanding the operation, people who can talk to the operations. And some experts just can't talk to the operations. Tournesol professor type of people. That's that. In the academic, you have a few of those. They're fantastic people, but they don't manage to work with the operation. So you need to have that right balance.
Yeah.
But then I always tell my team, and I was saying to them for HSC, by the way, our purpose in life is to disappear. We should make our positions redundant. So we should hope that 10, 15 years from now, we don't need us anymore. Now, of course, I usually continue by saying, don't worry, I think your job is safe for a decade or two. So you're not going to get fired tomorrow morning. But what that means, it makes you look at things differently, because that means that you truly embed sustainability into the day-to-day of the operations, because you want them to be the ones doing the job. So for example, the implementation of the strategy, the implementation team that was created was not reporting to me, was reporting to one of the region head to make sure it's full, and the European one, because this is where not majority, but where things had to go faster. But of course, they were looking at the full world. And by being embedded in the operation, it's very different, because when it's a boss of a country CEO telling him to do something, he listens way more than when it's Magali, even though she's a C-suite, etc., etc. And so you truly have to embed everything. So you shouldn't grow your own team. You should make sure we have sustainability people embedded in, or people in charge of sustainability, not necessarily sustainability people, actually. So people in charge of sustainability embedded in every part of the organization.
Great.
Very interesting.
Yes. And Magali, when you think about the challenges facing the world today, just we're curious to know, like, how you're feeling about the future. Are you optimistic about the future and the role that companies can play to create a better world?
Well, I have to, back to your previous question, I have to be optimistic, because if not, I think I would go and, I don't know, like I said, I don't know, Italy somewhere. It's kind of very nice. But no, I have to. Is it going fast enough? Definitely not. Am I worried about what I am saying? What happened at the COP28 on what happened last year, when so many companies, because they had a fantastic year in cash, decided to backtrack their targets, green hushing, all this stuff. That worries me. What's happening in nature, I think, is quite good. We are finding a way to measure nature, and more companies are taking commitment. The COP15 in Montreal, the biodiversity COP, with the famous target 15, which means companies will have to disclose this nature. So it's really mixed feelings.
Okay.
It's mixed feelings, because I think the world is taking the topic more and more seriously. Legislation is moving the right way. I don't think it's fast enough. And I think some key players are not playing the game, and I'm not sure we can do it without them.
To kind of close this podcast, Magali, we probably have someone listening this podcast, probably someone young who is considering a career in sustainability, maybe aspiring to be a CSO one day. What is your advice to them?
Well, I mean, there are still today quite a bunch of young people in Holcim who were having some key roles because they are very smart, very well educated. Just go for it, basically. Just go for it. Don't hesitate to challenge old people. Don't hesitate to run into the thing, to push people. Um, but it's funny because in terms of study, I remember having that discussion with my daughter, who is also a mechanical engineer, by the way, and she's has been passionate about environment and sustainability for since a very young age, and she was asking me when she was picking her topic for becoming an engineer because she was like, I don't like environmental engineers because I don't like the topics that are studied. It's just not my thing. And I advised her to be a mechanical engineer because she liked mechanic, not just because I have one and because you have one, Paolo. Because actually, in sectors like hard to abate sector, in the industrial sector, I think the mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, these guys will actually have a more impact to decarbonize in terms of innovation, technology, etc., than maybe some environmental engineers who are more looking at the overall system. So my conclusion to that, the reason I'm giving that story is to say every single skill is important because no matter where you are in a company, no matter what you do, you can have an impact. And it can be an impact at the office. We started Office Goes Green to get everyone. But you can start something. You can start by having, I don't know, a network of all the young people and, go for a coup and put down the power of the company. You can have an impact. You just need to believe in it. You need to follow some great thinker like Clover Hogan. I'm super fan of her with Force of Nature, where she's getting the young people to fight their eco-anxiety by finding a way to move the companies from the inside, etc., etc. So just continue believing in it and never doubt how much impact you can have as an individual, no matter where you are in the organization.
Great.
Fantastic. Magali, it was truly a pleasure to have you in our show. Thank you very much and congratulations for your fantastic work.
Thank you, Paolo. Thank you, Melina.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this discussion, we invite you to like and share this episode on your social media. Enjoy the rest of your day.